And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on, and I will fight on.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So once again, we got to talk about Trump deranged New York Attorney General Letitia James, who is currently trying to wage lawfare against President Trump, right? She is trying to stop President Trump's agenda by abusing her office to fight the policies of the administration.
Listen to this. New York Attorney General Letitia James is now announcing a lawsuit against the Trump administration's Health and Human Services Department over proposed health care funding cuts. So let's bring in Jonathan Turley, constitutional law attorney and Fox News contributor. Jonathan, good to have you here. Of course, this comes just weeks after the DOJ announced that they are actually investigating some allegations of mortgage fraud against Letitia James. She calls that revenge, but the timing of all of this seems a little suspect.
Well, it is par for the course. You know, James has always used her office to target opponents, whether it's Trump or the NRA. She's very selective and she's very open in politicizing that office. And this is the latest of a series of lawsuits by Democratic leaders around the country. And the problem for the Trump administration is they file before favorable courts in blue states, and they're getting these national injunctions. And it's gotten to the point of being absolutely absurd. It means that a president cannot govern unless you can basically run the course with 677 district court judges, any one of which can issue a national injunction. So you've got to win every case 677-0 if you actually want to implement policy. Well, the justices have said, including liberal justices like Justice Kagan, that this is truly insane. And this is just the latest such lawsuit to try to limit what this president can do.
Well, let's talk.
Yeah, see, seeing that, you heard that, okay? Letitia James has waged full-blown political warfare against the Trump administration. I mean, is anybody surprised by this, considering the fact that this woman has basically waged lawfare against the president for the last 4 years straight? Okay, she tried to bankrupt the president, which, by the way, she probably should have made sure that she had no skeletons in her closet before deciding to do that, because the tables have turned, right? Because Letitia James is facing accusations of mortgage fraud, right? For doing very similar things that she accused President Trump of doing. Take a look.
The Trump administration accuses Attorney General Tish James of mortgage fraud. They allege in court documents that in 2023, James granted her power of attorney to make a Norfolk, Virginia property her principal residence, despite her actually living and serving as Attorney General in New York. They also allege she bought a 5-family property in Brooklyn in 2001 with a loan that is only available for homes with 4 units or less. Alice Gaynor explains the accusations and the politics involved.
The head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency alleges New York Attorney General Letitia James may have committed mortgage fraud related to a Virginia home and a New York property. And so he sent Attorney General Pam Bondi a criminal referral letter.
I saw it on breaking news this morning. This case was sent to us from Bill Pulte. We have not seen it. I inquired right before I walked out here. No one in my office has read it yet. We haven't looked at it. Of course, we'll be reviewing it.
The allegations in that letter claim James listed the Virginia home as her main residence and that she misrepresented her Brooklyn property as having fewer units. All, he writes, in order to allegedly secure more favorable loan terms. It's also alleged James and her father signed mortgage documents in 1983 stating they were husband and wife. You may recall AG James filed a civil lawsuit against President Trump and the Trump Organization for inflating property values to get more favorable loan and insurance terms. She won, and they were fined hundreds of millions of dollars.
He said he was going to go after his enemies. He declared he would be going after his enemies. And he's finally gotten down to maybe the J's on his list, Tish James. He's going to keep going.
Governor Hochul was asked several questions about the allegations.
I'm going to allow her to have a chance to explain all this.
Attorney General James is focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers, especially as this administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. Legal expert Nicole Bernecki.
There is a statute of limitation. I think that is why that last instance where she allegedly declared her husband, her father, her husband, that was mentioned the last in the letter, because it's just, I think, inflammatory at this point because it was so long ago.
James has not been charged with anything. Alice Gaynor, CBS News, New York.
Yeah, so it should be no surprise that Big Tish is denying these allegations, okay, because she has been lashing out at the administration, claiming that they are weaponizing the legal system against her, right? No, she's actually the victim of weaponization and politicization of the legal system. The irony and hypocrisy here is absolutely insane.
That, like, basically the investigatory power is kind of everything, and all of that due process is kind of yada, yada, yada. But if you wanted to get a judgment about someone, you could. And what do you say to that in terms of what the facts actually bore out about the way that Donald Trump, particularly in his company, was conducting its business?
So his investigation, he exaggerated. Let me emphasize that. Exaggerated the value of his assets to the tune of millions and millions, and was able to secure favorable insurance and interest rates. As opposed to, and I'm sure Chris will probably get to this, they're claiming that I engaged in mortgage fraud, that I somehow decided that I was a resident of Virginia, which would be some commute every morning to the office at 28 Liberty. That somehow, I should be held to the same standard as Donald Trump, but somehow what I did was basically similar to what Donald Trump engaged in. And there's just no comparison. The allegations against me are totally baseless. And again, it was based on a 2-year investigation of his assets. And that judgment was issued by a Supreme Court justice, and there was an argument before the First Department Appellate Division, and we are awaiting a decision. I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way, but I am 100% confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me, and that it is nothing more than a revenge tour, and that Donald Trump just ultimately got to the J's, and I was next.
The key allegation, again, it sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken, for that property, that they say you falsely represented yourself as a resident of Virginia, and that was essentially amounts to mortgage fraud since you're a resident of New York. What is your response to that?
It's baseless. Everybody knows I'm a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn. And again, we will respond at the appropriate time in the appropriate way to these baseless allegations. And some media outlets like the Daily News over the weekend has indicated as much.
That's all you want to say?
That's all that I'm going to say.
So I'm just waiting for Letitia James to do an interview with an actual journalist, right? Not a propagandist, somebody that is actually going to confront her with the evidence, right? Which is that she signed a power of attorney that says unequivocally, I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence. Signed by Letitia James. All you got to do is just present her with this document that was also notarized as well, too. A notarized document. Present her with this document saying, hey, did you sign this? Is this your signature? Like, explain this, right? Explain how is it that we have a notarized power of attorney with your wet signature stating that you live in Virginia, that's your principal residence, but somehow these are just made up allegations, right? There's no basis to these allegations. Again, I'm just waiting for MSNBC to actually do journalism, right? This is probably why they did it in a podcast format, because ultimately they were not intending to actually ask her any questions, right? They wanted to give her a platform to essentially push back against the allegations from the Trump administration without, again, actually really presenting her with the evidence against her. So with that being said, Letitia James claims that she believes that these allegations are baseless and that she's not going to face any charges, but the FBI has opened up a formal investigation into the Attorney General. So let's read here. The FBI and U.S. Attorney General's office in Albany have launched a criminal investigation into mortgage fraud claims against New York Attorney General Letitia James. A source familiar with the probe told the Post. The investigation, first reported by the Albany Times Union, follows a request that the Justice Department investigate James sent by Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte to the Justice Department last month. New York's Northern District, where Pulte's referral was steered, is led by U.S. Attorney John Sarcone III, an ally of President Trump. Representative Lee Stefanik, who reps the district where the investigation was initiated, commended the FBI and Albany prosecutors. Quote, the investigation into Letitia James is a vital step towards justice. The Republican Congresswoman said in a statement, I will continue to fight to expose New York corruption, protect constitutional rights, and hold these failed Democrat leaders in New York accountable. Pulte's letter alleged James falsified records to obtain favorable loans on a home she purchased in 2023 in Virginia and a Brooklyn brownstone she owned since 2001. The Democrat also allegedly indicated the Virginia home would be her principal residence while acting as New York's top cop, and that she misrepresented the number of units in her Brooklyn residence. Quote, Ms. James, for both properties listed above, appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms, Pulte told Attorney General Pam Bondi. That could amount to criminal charges, including wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, and false statements to a financial institution, among others, Pulte added. The FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office in Albany didn't immediately return requests for comment Thursday. James' office declined to comment. Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, here's the extremely corrupt part about this. If she does happen to face charges, okay, which I believe that she will, she may have her legal fees covered by New York State taxpayers as she uses their tax dollars to go after President Trump when it comes to her facing some accountability, right, for her alleged crimes. No. Democrats are trying to protect her. They're trying to use tax dollars to protect her just in case she does face charges. Take a look.
Taxpayers may be footing the bill for Letitia James's legal fees related to that mortgage fraud, the series of allegations that we broke right here on The Angle. Governor Kathy Hochul's budget bill now has language that would actually put taxpayers on the hook for officials dealing with Trump administration-led investigations. So if the DOJ takes up Tish's criminal referral and this bill passes, she could end up tapping into a $10 million fund to cover any reasonable attorney's fees and expenses incurred. Here to unpack that is New York State Senator Rob Ortt. Senator, thank you for joining us. How will this go over with the hardworking men and women of New York who've already seen enough of her games for a while?
Yeah, I mean, you're already in the highest tax state. There's any number. We're going to pass a budget, Laura, that's going to be about $255 billion here in New York in the next couple days, passed, by Democrats in both the Senate Assembly, by Governor Hochul. And this is maybe one of the more egregious. They're going to take $10 million of public money, tax dollars, for private legal defense. Don't forget, this is regardless of whether it's even related to your job. So even if somebody else had a DUI, they could tap into this fund under this law. But this was drawn up expressly for one official, Tish James, to defend, so she can use the tax dollars for her
this
legal
is a slush
defense
fund. Yeah.
against the federal government.
Legal slush
It's a
fund.
complete
Yeah, legal
slap in the
slush
face of the
fund
taxpayers.
because allegedly she wanted certain benefits that she got by fraudulently stating things allegedly on these mortgage applications. Senator, thank you very much.
Wow. Wow. Overt corruption in your face. I don't know how New Yorkers tolerate it. How do you tolerate living in a high tax state like New York? And then you got Democrats turn around and trying to use your tax dollars that they're sucking you dry to fund Letitia James and her legal defense, right? Because that's what it's about. That's what it's about. The corruption is so blatant. She weaponizes her office to go after political opponents, right? Instead of focusing on fighting crime. And yet people think that this is okay, that the voters think that this is okay. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I really don't. I do not understand Democrat. I don't get liberals. How do you vote for this, right? How do you vote for this? Regardless, Letitia James needs to face accountability. I want to see some arrest, okay? I want to see some charges. I want to see her being held accountable, okay? Because what comes around goes around. She can boohoo, whine, and cry all day, but she started this. She literally campaigned on going after the president. That's what she did. Her whole career basically is about Trump. Her whole career. So since she opened up this can of worms, this is what she has to deal with. I cannot wait to see her behind bars, right? That's what needs to happen. I want to see Letitia James in a jumpsuit in jail, in prison. That's what I want to see. Nothing would make me happier than to see this woman actually face some accountability. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get that. Okay, the FBI has opened up a formal investigation, which hopefully means justice is coming. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.